How many Canadian fans are unclothed right now? All night they were unclothed.
Are you okay?
I'm great. I'm wonderful.
I know how big that game was for you last night.
Sucked.
I wanted to check on you, but then again, I decided to leave you alone.
Yeah, I didn't get a call from you. I could have used a little comfort. I'm just saying. Hi, everybody. Mike gone. I'm Jeff, Rico, David, Jeremy's right there. And Rico, did it live up to the hype? I mean, you're not a huge hockey guy. I know you got caught up into it. I know all of Detroit was watching yesterday. I know all of America was watching yesterday. And at the end of the day, this is why you don't pick the captain of the Toronto Maple Leafs to be your captain. I think that's the
and
one
that's
lesson
all you took away from this.
Doug and Scott were asking the question, what'd you learn from yesterday? I learned never trust a Maple Leaf. Austin Matthews, where the hell were you? Where were you?
Yeah. That's just funny. That's you. But that's so on brand for you that, he hasn't been that great for the Maple Leafs. Yeah,
he's 0 for 7 in elimination games.
Connor McDavid open. Yeah.
I'm just saying, the end of it sucked, and it always happens like that in hockey because Matthews and other Americans had chance after chance after chance on Binnington.
That. I was right, exactly. I'm like, okay, here's the thing. You see how many shots they're taking, the Americans? This means the Canadians will win.
I agree with you.
Because all of a sudden they're going to break away, and bang, you're sitting there like, but we took so many shots on goal, but you didn't make any of them. This game went exactly how I thought it was going to be. Now, these guys said I was the deflator and all of that.
No, you called them no fights. There was no fights. There was no penalties. With the exception of the one, and they gave a power play to Canada.
In hindsight, Rigger, I think we all should have saw this because I think at this point, Batman went, hey, guys, the world is watching, okay? You had your fun on Saturday when it was kind of a fringe sport, but right now, tonight, everybody's watching. There'll be no fighting. Hey, refs, unless somebody dies on the ice, there are no penalties. Because there was a couple times I was like, oh, that's a pit. Wow.
Well, especially in overtime. That would have actually benefited Team USA. Canada, shocking, I know, didn't get a single penalty called on them all game. The Americans got one called, and they were able to kill off a Canadian power play. But I disagree a little bit about the fighting. I think Bettman and the NHL would have loved more fights.
No.
Because everybody talks about the fights, and you can't fight in international hockey, so you can fight in NHL hockey.
No, but see, I think because they're showing off it's like the Super Bowl, Rieger. These are people who may never watch this sport, and this is the first time they're watching it. So you got to make sure you almost put it in the purest form.
Yeah, but nobody's turned off by the fighting. I would argue the opposite. People love the fighting.
No, but then they would expect fighting in every game. So if you're new to
like
the
a
sport,
regular season Wild Wings game tomorrow, you mean?
Right. Like, okay, well, you go to the game. Where's the fights? Well, they don't really fight like that. So, yeah, it's what made Saturday such a distinguished game because everybody saw this and was just like, wow, 2 seconds in, fight. Another 2 seconds in, another fight.
Loved it.
5 more seconds later, another fight.
You know what I love the most about Saturday's game? That the Americans won. Here's the deal. We're curious. Did you get wrapped up into it? And did yesterday live up to the hype? Because I know a lot of people on your show. I heard people call your show my show. People are like, dude, I wasn't going to watch. I didn't care. And then it's because they heard people talking about how good it could be and how good it's been that people got wrapped up into it. So when you're watching yesterday, and Rico and I are talking about overtime, and you did get that eerily awful feeling that Team Canada is going to pull it out, I was enraged, absolutely enraged when Connor McDavid scored the goal. I was even more enraged when I watched the play again and I saw that Matthews left him wide open. But more than anything, I was amazed with how angry I was. I wonder if the people watching yesterday, were you wrapped up so much that you were pissed after the loss? Or is it just something like, okay, it was fun while it lasted. We get the regular season starting tomorrow. I go back to my regularly scheduled life. I wonder how many people were actually pissed that Team USA lost. And I would say the game definitely lived up to the hype, despite I thought the Boston fans were a little, what's the word? Soft. Like, They stood in overtime. I know there were a lot of Canadians there.
And I was about to say, Rico,
I wanted more rowdiness from that fan base.
That crowd was it looked like about a 60-40 split. There were a lot of Canadian fans there.
60-40 U.S.?
U.S.
Okay.
But about 40% Canadian fans, like at the end, when they all stuck around and you saw all the red, it was like, man, there were a lot of Canadian fans here. So, yeah. I think, to me, it did exactly what I thought. It was fun to watch. It was exciting. It felt like a Game 7 where each goal was like, okay, this you were on the edge of your seat. Okay, U.S. goes up 2-1. Oh, damn it. Now it's tied. And in the third period,
back and forth
until you finally get to like 10 seconds left and you're like, okay, this is going to overtime. Great.
Well, the overtime reminded me of, I know it's a foreign concept, from when the Red Wings were actually in the playoffs. Like, watching so many Red Wing playoff games back in the day. Remember the ones you had to stay up late for when they went to Anaheim or they went to San Jose or they went to Edmonton? And it goes to overtime, and the game goes to like 2 a.m, and you go to work the next day, and you're bleary-eyed and you're exhausted. Watching yesterday in overtime, I cared so much, made me hearken back to when the Wings were in the playoffs, and I hope they get to the playoffs this year. But I'm curious what people took out of it. Here's the other thing. I was obnoxious towards Canada. I was a jerk towards Canada. I called them arrogant many times over the course of the last 4 days. I went on a Canadian radio station yesterday. I called them arrogant to their face. And you know what? I don't regret any of it.
Not at all.
You know what? I wanted them to lose so bad because it would have been a 4-alarm fire in Canada right now. They would all be freaking out right now. The radios everywhere would be bitching about got to make a line change. The cost of ice time is too high. The average kid in Canada and Saskatoon can't play hockey. Rico, we were so close to catching them, and then they win, and then those damn Canadians always say the same thing. Well, you Americans know when the game means something, we're going to kick your ass. And so far, they've been right about everything.
I was just funny. I was just wondering if Marchand would have ended that game, what would the reaction would have been in overtime? Like,
now, considering he was a Bruin or is a Bruin,
right? Like, what would yeah? Oh no, you just won the game for us. So no, that was the only one that I was curious to see what would the reaction be had he actually scored that goal. But I think that for most people, you're probably just going to be like, okay, it was a fun run,
it's over.
And you just move on.
It was
an event. It's like a fight night. It's like you get hyped for a fight, and then when the fight is over, you don't care about it anymore. You just move on. Now, Canada needed it because at that point, it's their sport. So like I said yesterday, their sport. You never want to get embarrassed with your sport, was apparently your all-star, and you couldn't beat the U.S. If they would have lost to somebody else, I think it would have been okay, but it's the fact that we're the annoying neighbor to them. And it's just like,
it would have killed them. It would have killed them.
Yes, SOB. Okay.
It would have killed them. Like, they don't want to admit it. The Americans won the juniors. The Americans are catching them. The Americans, like other countries, are developing players just as good as Canada. We had a dude call in yesterday when I was on, and he got upset because I called Canadian hockey arrogant. And he's like, I'm a coach, and we're stealing things from the Americans on how to coach our kids. So we're coming, Canada. Not to mention Crosby's 37. Marchand might have played his last Canadian hockey game. We're coming for you. It just would have been so sweet to pop you last night. And unfortunately, it didn't happen. So where are you? 248-539-9797. It's now over. We go back to our regularly scheduled life. Did you wake up a little angry? Did the game affect you to the point that like it felt like a loss like you normally feel with Detroit losses? Or did you just get over it rather easily? And did the game live up to the hype? It went to overtime. And by the way, I think we realized that this thing wasn't going 7 overtimes. It's almost like both teams got the message. Go out and try to score now because there were so many great chances in the extra session. So 248-539-9797, the ticket text, the exact same number. We'll get to the calls. 3 o'clock, Rico has a theory on Michigan State and Michigan that I'm not quite sure I agree with. We'll get into that. Big game tonight.
You will.
97 won the ticket.